My mom gave my apartment keys to my sister while I was on vacation. I called the cops. Hi, I'm Max, 35, and 4 days into a dream vacation in Portugal, my mom gave away my apartment. Yeah, that's how this starts. I was sitting on a sunlit terrace in Porto with a glass of Vinho Verde, my girlfriend Aria laughing next to me, our 4-year-old daughter napping in her stroller, and the Douro River sparkling like a postcard. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mom. I gave your apartment keys to Clara. She's moving in while you're gone. Just like that. No, hey, can we talk? No warning. Just a cheerful update, like she'd watered my plants or borrowed my car for groceries. Except instead of borrowing something, she handed my entire home to my younger sister like it was a favor I forgot to offer. My chest went tight. Arya saw it happen in real time. My smile just vanished mid-sentence. I reread the message 3 times. I replied, "You did what?" Then the phone rang. Mom again. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic. Clara needs a place. You're on vacation for 10 days. Share. Share. That word again. Like I was hoarding cookies and not. Paying rent on a 2-bedroom apartment that I worked my ass off to keep stable for my family. Then she said it. She just needs some stability. You're hardly ever home, Max. There it was. The story they've always told themselves. That my space, my time, my effort, it's community property. And if I protect it, I'm selfish. What they didn't know? I wasn't about to argue. I wasn't about to go through the same old guilt script. Not this time. I calmly called my landlord, told him what happened, and said 6 words I never thought I'd say. She broke in. Call the cops. And that's when everything changed. When I say my landlord, Frank, is old school, I mean the man still keeps everything on paper. No online portal, no texting, just a Nokia brick phone and a filing cabinet that probably predates the internet. So when I called and said, Clara moved in while I'm abroad, he didn't ask dumb questions. She what? He barked. You authorized that? Nope. She got the key from my mom. You mean your emergency contact? Yeah, I said. Apparently, emergency now means I felt like it. Frank didn't laugh. You're paying rent. She's not on the lease. That's a legal entry. He hung up mid-sentence, which with Frank is his way of saying, I'm already in the car. Meanwhile, Arya stared at me like I'd grown a second head. She's living there? Already? For days into the trip? I nodded, heart pounding. Changed the locks. Moved in furniture. Sent a selfie from the living room like it was her new condo. I pulled up the photo. Clara, 29, smiling like she'd won a radio contest. Same sister who once cried her way out of a speeding ticket and got the judge to apologize. Let me explain something. Clara isn't evil. She's just been trained since birth to believe other people will catch her when she jumps. And I was her favorite trampoline. I helped her co-sign a car she crashed in 3 months. I paid off her overdue tuition when she forgot to register for classes. I babysat her toddler through 2 breakups and 1 poorly conceived art project phase where she sold clay mugs with motivational swear words. Every time I said no, my mom sighed like I'd personally kicked Clara's puppy. Max, she'd say, family doesn't keep score. Which is rich, coming from a woman who keeps a literal scrapbook of times Clara helped around the house growing up. So no, I didn't tell anyone I'd finally drawn a line. I just waited. 10 minutes later, Frank called back. I'm here, he said, breathing like he'd jogged the stairs. She changed the locks all right. Says she lives here now. Wants me to take it up with her lawyer. She doesn't have a lawyer. I figured, he said. I'm calling the locksmith and the cops. You want me to FaceTime you? No, I said. Just handle it. And Frank. Yeah. Charge me whatever it costs. Just get her out. Arya took my phone and set it down. Max, she said gently. This is going to blow up. I looked out over the water, the breeze soft and warm. I know, I said. Let it. Clara went nuclear. Frank called again an hour later. They escorted her out, he said, his voice tight with second-hand adrenaline. She was screaming that you're abandoning your family. Claimed she had squatters' rights. Told the cops she had a verbal agreement with you. I actually laughed. A verbal agreement? In what universe? The same one where a free apartment is her birthright, Frank muttered. Anyway, locksmith's here. We're putting in new deadbolts, top quality. She won't get back in unless she brings a tank. Send me the invoice, I said. Nope, he replied. I'll eat it. Consider it a reward for finally saying no. He hung up before I could argue. Old school landlords don't do warm and fuzzy, but that was the closest thing to support I'd gotten from an adult in my family in years. Then came the fallout. My phone lit up like it owed someone money. 23 missed calls. 7 voicemails. Half from Clara, crying, shrieking, pleading. The other half from Mom, working her way through the emotional manipulation playbook like it was a checklist. First message. Max, you didn't have to call the police. That was extreme. Second, your sister has nowhere to go. She has a child, Max. Third, I raised you better than this. Fourth, we are so disappointed. Fifth, what happened to you? Arya changed you. There it was. The Arya clause. My mom had always been politely chilly to Arya, fake warm on holidays, then passive-aggressive by dessert. Mostly because Arya doesn't play the guilt game. She says what she means and doesn't apologize for setting boundaries, which in our family might as well be witchcraft. So I wasn't surprised when the narrative shifted to Arya being the villain. It was easier than admitting they'd crossed a line. Arya sat beside me on the rental's tiny balcony that night. Our daughter was asleep again, wiped from a long day of castles and gelato. I stared out at the city lights and tried to breathe through the guilt fog. She said I embarrassed her. I muttered. Clara said I humiliated her in front of her kid. Arya didn't even blink. Did you break into her house? No. Did you change her locks and redecorate? No. She raised an eyebrow. Then what exactly are you supposed to be guilty for? I opened my mouth and realized I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Just an old reflex that screamed, fix this. Make it okay. I was raised to think that boundaries were punishments. That saying no meant you didn't love someone. That the worst thing you could be was cold. But I wasn't cold. I was done. And that night, for the first time, I said the words out loud. I think I need to cut them off. Arya looked at me like I'd just stepped into the sunlight after years underground. Good, she said. Now let's figure out how. We landed back in Chicago 6 days later, and the air felt different. Colder, sure. It's January, but that wasn't it. It felt still. Like I'd muted a radio station that had been playing in the background of my brain for 30 years. We didn't go to my parents' place. We didn't call anyone. We went straight from the airport to Frank's office. He handed me 2 shiny new keys and a manila envelope. I documented everything, he said. Date of entry, lock change, police report, photos of the furniture she brought in, including that ugly throw blanket, by the way. Yeah, Arya muttered, flipping through the papers. Clara's signature aesthetic, chaos and chevron print. Frank smiled like he couldn't help himself. Units secure. No signs of damage, just weird rearranging. She turned your office into a zen space. I assumed that's what the lava lamp was for. When we got home, it hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't trashed, but it wasn't mine. She'd rearranged the bookshelf, left dishes drying on the rack, put her kids' drawings on our fridge like we were roommates. Our daughter's room had been turned into a nursery, portable crib, new stuffed animals, diapers, a little note on the door, baby naps here, smiley face. I stood there, gripping the doorknob, jaw tight. She was moving in, I said out loud. Arya walked over slowly and put her arm through mine. This is the line, she said. This is where it changes. We cleaned the place together, took down every trace, scrubbed the fridge, packed up the diapers, and donated them. I changed every password, every code, got a new phone number, filed a formal no-contact request with the building. I even installed a camera doorbell, because the message was simple now. This space, it's ours, and it doesn't belong to the person who cries loudest. That night, I blocked my sister on every platform, then my mom, then my dad. I didn't post about it. I didn't make a speech. I didn't explain myself. I just stopped participating. You know that saying, the only way to win is not to play. Yeah, that. Then I did the most radical thing I've ever done. I started looking for a new place to live. Somewhere safer. Somewhere they didn't know the code to the front door. Arya helped me make a list. No shared walls. No surprise visitors. No emergency keys, just in case. Just us. 3 weeks later, we closed on a 3-bedroom townhouse in a quiet, gated community on the edge of the city. Nothing flashy, no pool, no fancy rooftop lounge. Just a clean, safe place with a keypad lock and neighbors who minded their business. Purchase price, $412,000. Down payment, $120,000. Paid in full from an account no one in my family even knew existed. I didn't tell anyone we were moving, not even my cousin Leo, who I actually like. Because I finally understood something. Privacy isn't secrecy. It's protection. We moved in over one snowy weekend with just 2 friends, one U-Haul, and the steadiest calm I've ever felt. No tears. No panic. Just relief. I updated our mailing address, changed every account, registered with the post office, notified work, and locked everything behind 2-factor authentication. And then I sat on the living room floor and just exhaled. "This is ours," Arya whispered, curling up next to me on the carpet. "Nobody gets to barge in, not even with a smile and a casserole." Meanwhile, my family? Still spiraling. Apparently, Clara had been trying to build a narrative that I'd left her homeless and humiliated. She told our aunts I kicked out a single mom, told my grandparents that Arya was controlling and tearing the family apart. But something strange started to happen. When Clara couldn't use me as a solution, people started noticing the pattern. My cousin Leo texted me out of nowhere. "Dude, I didn't know what actually happened. That's nuts. Proud of you for holding the line." One of my uncles sent a message a week later. "She pulled the same stunt with our daughter last year. You just handled it better." And then came the voicemail from my dad. I didn't recognize the number. I only answered because I thought it might be the delivery guy. His voice was softer than I remembered. "Tired. Max, your mom won't stop. I don't agree with how you handled it, but I didn't think you'd actually leave." I didn't say anything. I just let the silence hold. "I guess I thought you'd always bend. You always did." I took a breath. I didn't leave. I moved forward. He sighed, like that sentence alone weighed a ton. "She says you've changed." "I hope so," I said. There was a long pause. Then, finally, "I'm sorry." Not dramatic. Not loud. But real. And that was the moment I knew. I wasn't the one who needed fixing. After my dad's call, the silence from the rest of my family got louder. Not quieter, louder. Because when you stop being the reliable one, the fixer, the emotional dumping ground, people notice. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the access. Arya called it ghost withdrawal. "You were their 24/7 customer service line," she said. "Now you've closed the call center." Still, they tried new tricks. Mom sent a letter. A real letter. Handwritten in slanted cursive like it was 1953, and she was a Southern widow begging the town council for a church loan. It was 4 pages long, filled with dramatic phrases like, "After all we've done for you. This isn't the Max we raised. Family doesn't throw each other away." Arya read it out loud in her best soap opera voice, then tossed it in the trash. "Do you want to respond?" she asked, serious again. I thought about it. Thought about all the years I spent crafting responses, explaining myself, hoping they'd finally get it. Then I opened my laptop and wrote a short email to my parents and Clara. I did not give anyone permission to enter my home. "You crossed a legal and personal boundary. I will not be discussing this further. Do not contact my wife. Do not show up unannounced. If you want a relationship with me in the future, it will be based on respect and consent, not pressure." I stared at the last line for a long time. Then I added one more. "Family is not a free pass." I hit send, muted the thread, and I swear to God, my body felt lighter. Not happy, not triumphant, just like I'd finally stopped carrying something that wasn't mine. And after that, things were weirdly calm. Not perfect, but quiet. A kind of peace I didn't know I was allowed to have. Until, of course, they showed up again. It was a Sunday morning. Crisp, cold, quiet. Arya and I were sipping coffee while our daughter watched cartoons, wrapped in her blanket burrito on the couch. It felt like a normal day. A safe day. Then the doorbell rang. I checked the camera feed. It was my mom. No call. No text. Just standing there in a long coat, like she was auditioning for a role in Emotional Blackmail, the musical. I didn't open it. I didn't say a word. Just stood there watching her on the screen. Arya came up behind me, leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you want to talk to her?" I shook my head. If I open that door, I'm inviting the whole system back in. Mom knocked again. Firm, then soft, like she was testing which version might work. Then, loud enough for the doorbell mic to catch. "Max, honey, I just want to talk. Clara is heartbroken. The kids are confused. You embarrassed her. You didn't have to go that far." There it was again. The word they always reach for when they run out of logic. Embarrassed. Never, you were hurt. Never we crossed a line. Just, you made us uncomfortable. I said nothing. Mom's voice shifted into weaponized guilt. You used to be so kind. You used to care. Arya whispered, she's not talking to you. She's talking to the version of you that never said no. Eventually, Mom gave up. I watched her walk back to her car, fuming. She didn't look like a mother heartbroken for her kids. She looked like a person shocked that the vending machine finally stopped giving out free snacks. Over the next few weeks, the calls slowed. The emails dried up. The messages trickled to a stop. Because when people can't manipulate you, they lose interest. Even Clara stopped trying. She pivoted the story. Now I was cruel, distant, brainwashed by my girlfriend. Which is fine, because you know what? I'd rather be called cruel than be used quietly. It's been almost a year now. Clara still tells people I abandoned her, that I turned my back on family, that I humiliated her during the hardest season of her life. But I don't respond. I don't defend, because I finally understand something. Silence isn't weakness. It's a boundary. My mom occasionally tests the fence. A forwarded article. A just checking an email. A birthday card for our daughter that conveniently leaves out Aria's name. But it all goes unopened into a folder I labeled emotional recycling. My dad's relationship with me is cautious, but present. He visits sometimes, alone. Plays with his granddaughter. Doesn't bring up Clara. Doesn't talk about my mom. Just shows up. It's not perfect, but it's honest. Arya and I sleep better. My daughter knows her home is safe. I don't flinch when the phone buzzes. I don't wake up with dread wondering what emotional landmine today will bring. And the wildest part? I don't feel guilty anymore. Because I finally stopped confusing love with compliance. I used to think protecting my peace made me selfish. That saying no was unkind. That boundaries meant I'd be alone. But I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by people who respect me. I have a partner who tells me the truth, even when it's hard. I have a child growing up in a home that runs on consent, not obligation. And most importantly, I have me. The version of me that no longer auditions for love. So if you're reading this and wondering if you're the problem for finally saying no, you're not. You're the one who stopped the pattern. And that makes you the hero of the story, not the villain. Now let me ask you something. If your family crossed a line and called it love, would you be brave enough to call it what it was? And if the answer is yes, what's the first lock you'd change? Max. 6 months after the silence settled, something weird happened. Clara sent a wedding invitation, addressed to Maxwell Lane and guest, like we were casual Facebook friends. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a glittery envelope with embossed names and a note inside that read, "It would mean the world if you came. Let's start fresh." Arya raised an eyebrow when she opened it. Does start fresh mean forget everything I did, or pretend none of it happened? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was strategic. Clara had always treated events like courtrooms. Whoever showed up first won the argument. And she knew if I came, it would rewrite the story. It would say, Max forgave us. Max came around. Max admitted he overreacted. But I hadn't overreacted. I'd reacted correctly, for the first time in my adult life. So I didn't RSVP, didn't send a card, didn't acknowledge it. 2 weeks later, my mom called Aria's work. That's when I knew we weren't done. When Aria's co-worker said, "Hey, your mother-in-law called the main line asking for you." I swear her entire spine straightened like a cat spotting a rival. "She what?" Arya asked. She said it was urgent. Something about needing to talk before the wedding. Arya nodded, calm but clipped. "Cool. Next time she calls, please transfer her directly to Max's voicemail graveyard." She came home quiet that night. I knew that look. She wasn't mad. She was calculating. She's not trying to reconnect, Arya said. She's trying to reclaim the narrative. Clara's wedding is the big family reset button, and you refusing to show up ruins the picture. And she was right. A week later, I got an email from my mom. The subject line, "Can we talk before it's too late?" Too late for what? I clicked it. Read the first 3 lines. "Max, I know you're still upset. I know you've changed. But Clara is your only sister. Don't punish her forever. Let's move forward, for the sake of the family." The phrase "for the sake of the family" hit like a cold slap. That was their favorite slogan. That and "don't make this bigger than it is." I stared at the screen, wondering how many years I'd wasted trying to earn grace from people who handed it out based on silence. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something my old self never would have done. I made plans to take Arya and our daughter out of town on Clara's wedding weekend. Not as a protest, as a celebration. Of freedom, of peace, of choosing ourselves. We booked a cabin in the mountains for Clara's wedding weekend. 3 days. No cell service. No extended family. No drama. Just trees, hot cocoa, and the kind of silence that doesn't demand anything from you. On the first night, we lit a fire and made s'mores with our daughter. Aria played music from her phone until it lost signal. Then we just talked. Like people who weren't constantly dodging emotional landmines. You know, Aria said, poking at the fire, I used to think your family hated me. I looked up. Used to. She smirked. Well, now I know they just hate that you stopped being their safety net. I laughed, and it wasn't bitter. It was honest. Because yeah, once I stopped absorbing their panic, I became the villain. Clara got married that Saturday. How do I know? Because my cousin Leo texted me a photo. Just a blurry snapshot of the ceremony, followed by, no speech from your mom. Weirdest wedding ever. Everyone's acting like you're dead. I read the message and felt nothing. No FOMO. No regret. Just a strange kind of clarity. I wasn't missing a moment. I was skipping a performance. And later that night, when our daughter fell asleep between us, Aria whispered, you didn't just escape something. You built something better. And for the first time in my life, I believe that might actually be true. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name in familiar cursive I hadn't seen since childhood, my grandmother's. Inside was a single page. Max, I don't know the details, and I won't pretend to, but I remember you at 5 years old, fixing your toy trucks while Clara cried over hers. You were always fixing things. Maybe it's time you stopped. I'm proud of you. Love, Grandma. I stood in the hallway holding that note like it might burn through my hands. I hadn't even realized she noticed. My grandmother was quiet, crocheted in the corner at holidays, kissed cheeks at funerals. I always assumed she was part of the system, that she approved of how things were. But now I wasn't sure. And maybe that was the whole point. Maybe people had noticed. Maybe some of them had just stayed quiet because they didn't know how to say, you deserve better, without blowing up the peace. But here's what I learned. Sometimes peace isn't peace. Sometimes it's just fear in a cardigan. And sometimes you don't realize how loud your family was until you turn the volume all the way down. Aria read the note twice. Then she taped it to our fridge next to our daughter's art. Keep the good voices close, she said. I stared at the scribbled stars and smiley faces and suddenly felt more grounded than I had in months. Not because I had closure, but because I didn't need it anymore. By the time spring rolled in, I hadn't heard from Clara in over 2 months. No texts. No guilt-laced updates. No the kids miss you voice notes. Just silence. It wasn't peace exactly, but it was something close. Then, one afternoon, while I was walking our daughter home from preschool, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I'm in therapy now. I'm trying. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know I get it now. It didn't say a name, but I knew. Clara. I stopped walking. My daughter tugged my hand. Daddy, look. Worms. I crouched beside her and watched her poke the dirt with a stick. She grinned like it was magic. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need her apology. Not because I didn't want one, because I wasn't living my life around her anymore. I didn't reply right away. I waited 3 days. Thought about what future I actually wanted, not what version of me would make everyone else comfortable. Then I typed, I hope therapy brings you peace. I mean that. But rebuilding anything between us would take time, honesty, and boundaries you'd have to accept. That's not a threat. It's a prerequisite. She replied, I understand. Thank you for responding. That was it. No more follow-up. No manipulation. Just a pause. And that felt like growth. Hers. And mine. It's been over a year now since the locks were changed, the calls were blocked, and the old version of me finally stepped off stage. People still ask, sometimes, extended family, old friends, co-workers who caught wind of the drama. Do you talk to your sister again? Did things get better with your mom? Is your family back together? And the honest answer is no. But also yes. Because we built something better. Not with them. With us. Aria and I have rhythms now. Weekly hikes. Game nights. Lazy mornings where our daughter sneaks into our bed and insists we all become a blanket burrito family. We host small dinners with chosen family, friends who don't need explanations. People who understand that showing up is an act of love, not leverage. My dad visits sometimes. He's softer now. Doesn't try to fix anything. Doesn't ask about Clara or mom. He brings puzzles for our daughter, and helps her build elaborate cardboard castles in the living room. We don't talk about the past, and maybe that's okay. My mom. She sends a birthday card every year. No return address. No message beyond love, Mom. I don't respond. I'm not angry. Just unavailable. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Not all families reconcile. Some evolve. Some shrink. Some stop being a daily storm and become distant weather patterns. Still there. Still shaping the horizon. But no longer capable of flooding your life. I don't need my family to understand everything they did. I just need them not to do it again. And as for Clara, we haven't spoken in months. But she sent a photo once. Her kid holding a worm. He found it on a walk. The message said, "Thought you'd appreciate it." I smiled. Not because it fixed anything, but because for the first time, it didn't come with strings. And that was enough.